These days, it's not just the big banks taking advantage of cheap overseas labour by moving their call centres to developing economies like India. Now, small businesses are getting in on the act. Thanks to the internet, they're offshoring a whole range of work like marketing, web design and even office administration to cheaper overseas locations like the Philippines. Budding entrepreneurs say the new technology allows them to build their businesses by sourcing white-collar workers overseas at a significantly lower cost than here in Australia. Thea De Chaos reports.
Hey Vasily, how you doing?
Hello Steve, I'm fine, thanks.
Steve Sammartino runs an internet business from his home in Melbourne. But his employees aren't in the same country, let alone the same room.
I actually have people in pretty much every global hemisphere working for us on our business.
Vasily Rakovica is an IT professional who lives in the former Soviet Republic of Moldova. He works as Steve Sammartino's web developer.
What's the weather like today in Chisinau?
Oh, it's very cold outside. It's about -20 degrees and we have a lot of snow.
We have a very tight working relationship. It's like he's sitting on this couch with me, but you know, he's on Skype talking to me over in Moldova.
When Steve Sammartino came up with the concept of a website where people could rent everyday goods to each other, he had a limited budget. But the internet has given him access to talent around the world, willing to work for much less than the going rate in Australia.
I found a lady who lives in Mexico who works with a website called iStockPhoto. I went to her directly and asked for some design work. She gave me a quote which was, you know, maybe even 1 to 5% of the cost to get it done locally. So, you know, something that would have cost me maybe $5,000, I got done for somewhere between 50 and 100.
The web is breaking down employment barriers and offshoring is no longer the preserve of big business. The Finance Sector Union Secretary Leon Carter says he's not surprised that small business is now increasingly using offshore labour.
When you allow some of the most profitable companies in the country, like the banks, to offshore without any punishment, without any commentary, they get a competitive advantage from offshoring. What signal does it send to the rest of the economy? Our banks will allow that to happen unless the government gets involved.
Yeah.
Over the past 5 years, banks and other big corporations have sparked union anger by moving their call centre work offshore.
We've had over 5,000 jobs disappear out of our industry, not because we haven't got Australians to do those jobs, it's because they can get it done cheaper in India.
An increasing number of websites are now devoted to finding work for professionals in developing countries. They offer any job that can be done remotely, from web design to office administration.
For every one Australian senior staff member that I'll employ, I could employ myself a full-fledged professional team offshore.
Based in Sydney, Chris Yankolovsky runs Remote Staff, a recruitment website for Australian businesses looking for white-collar workers in the Philippines.
From developers that have got 19 years experience, that have spent a lifetime at school and university that would cost us around 120,000 Australian a year. I could get quality, intelligent people who could assist in customer care, in accounts, in sales. In all these fields, I could get them all for the price of one senior Australian staff.
Chris Yankolovsky says small business now makes up 80% of his clientele, and he has this warning for Australian workers.
So anyone working in the CBDs and anyone who's really, so to say, bludging these days, they better watch out, because globalisation is here and there's a lot of people out there who are hungry and who would love to compete. And would love to compete for your job.
The tradition has been to offshore or outsource jobs because it is about cutting labour costs. So obviously over time that will put competitive pressure on wages and conditions in Australia. No Australian wants to see their living standards decline. No Australian parent wants to see jobs in Australia of lesser quality that lead to lower living standards for the future.
It's unprecedented in the sense that we've reached probably the ultimate in terms of the jobs at risk from offshoring.
In 2008, the Finance Sector Union commissioned economist Peter Brain to research the impact of offshoring. He estimated that up to 1 million service sector jobs would leave the country in the next 20 years.
And we're going to have to increasingly realise that in order to secure and maintain our employment, especially at the income levels we aspire to, we are going to individually have to view ourselves as being competitive on a world, not just a national or local stage.
Hi Lois, how are you going?
Yes, I'm doing good.
Thanks very much for sending me the spreadsheets.
Miles Urquhart runs an IT consulting business in Sydney's north. He used Chris Yankolovsky's recruitment service to find someone in the Philippines to make his business calls.
The actual cost is about a quarter of what it would be to hire a local staff, so I can have a full-time person working for me doing quality calls, and I'm relaxed in the knowledge that they're handling that side of the business for me, so I can go and concentrate on more strategic tasks that add value to the business.
If there is such a difference between wages paid here and wages paid in another country for white-collar work, for skilled professional work, then there must be a level of exploitation. There must be a lack of labour rights and standards in the countries in which they are seeking that talent.
The implementation of the government's high-speed broadband network, once it's in place, will accelerate the offshoring, simply because it'll enable the virtual office to be established in almost any business enterprise.
But years of offshoring in the finance sector has made the union sceptical about the long-term benefits.
This false prophecy that somehow offshoring makes things cheaper and easier is absolutely wrong. You may be paying cheaper wages, but you're often having to pay Australians to fix up the mistakes that are made. Customers absolutely hate the fact that they're often having to deal with somebody overseas. So at the end of the day, they might have a short-term gain in how much they pay, a short-term gain in their profit, but at the end of the day, they lose their reputation. Australians don't want their work done overseas.
While the arguments surrounding the pros and cons of offshore labour continue, Steve Sammartino is in no doubt that many more Australian workplaces will soon face the reality of offshoring.
The deluge of change that is about to occur in white-collar work in Australia it's incomprehensible. People who are on the IT side know what's happening. It's interesting, we talk about it and we don't think that the country even knows what's about to happen to white-collar work. It is absolutely significant.
Theatre chaos with that.